Hello, my name is William Pezzarello, founder of the Broken Health Network Change Campaign. I hope you enjoyed exploring my website and have learned something new. You are at the last step, for now anyway, my reflection on my findings. I feel that my Change Campaign is a good example of persuasive communication because I effectively and efficiently show readers or listeners the facts and present them in a way that makes the consumer think about what they have just seen or heard. For example, in my investigative report article, I used anecdotes when I told the stories of Tory Lacey and Maddie Vanstone, Canadians, and the two Arizonans, Mark Price and Tiffany Tate. These anecdotes appeal to the pathos of readers and make people angry about the facts and stories I have given them. I especially appeal to the pathos of readers when in my podcast I interviewed real-life survivors of a medical crisis. Even in the Lysol I made up near the end of my podcast, I used alliteration and the rule of three when I was listing things to catch my readers in a flow of wow. In my report, my podcast, and my song, my use of damning evidence with hard facts and statistics is clear. My personal favorite of the three, the song I wrote, is very persuasive because I give statistics and put it into a fictional anecdote that is a probable scenario to call upon my brothers and sisters to join the fight and get angry about what has been going on for far too long: poor healthcare. I also utilized rhetorical questions to egg on my readers in my article. Lots of humor to keep the reader from getting bored, or listener, colloquial language in my rap song, and hyperbole. My use of hyperbole is most notable when in my rap song I say that my mama's toe gonna get chopped off. My goal was to firstly show the readers the faults in both the Canadian and American systems, but especially highlight how many more faults exist in the American healthcare system. And I think I was successful in implementing the necessary persuasive tactics to sway my readers to my line of thought and ideas. I believe that my campaign created a unified message because my article, podcast, and song were centralized around the issues in Canadian and American healthcare, in particular the American system. I used Canadian healthcare as a baseline of sorts, and then compared and contrasted the Canadian healthcare system with the American system in my article and podcast, while I focused solely on critiquing the American system in my rap song. But I did use some Canadian allusions to make my statements really pop. If I had the opportunity to do this presentation and call to action all over again and make it even better, I would focus on more than just Canada and the United States. There are so many healthcare crises around the world that don't get enough media attention. For example, HIV is a pandemic in sub-Saharan Africa. 64% of all HIV cases are in the sub-Saharan African region. But the reason I decided to stick with North America was because it hits close to home as someone who has had to undergo cancer treatment. So I wanted to outline it and get people talking, make them angry and want to do something about it. When creating my campaign, I had to really dig and find the angry part of myself. Generally I'm a pretty happy person, I'm happy with my life, I don't get very angry. So when I stumbled across healthcare and started doing some research, it really lit the flame. One could say, this really grinds my gears. I knew healthcare was what I had to do, and I needed to show the world that this is a problem, because something has to be done, and the change starts with you, just as it says above my headline on my website. I used a lot of the skills I learned throughout my ENG 3 UK course to develop my campaign. The one I utilized the most was the art of persuasion. Definitely my biggest takeaway was using persuasive skills and techniques that I've been improving throughout this course, and it helped me really bring my campaign to life. I started writing down ideas, then turned them into persuasions. Like my essay, it started out as a jumble of jotted down facts on my notepad. My podcast, too, started out as ideas that I turned into questions and refined into an interview. Lastly, my song. I put together some comical elements to capture the listeners, combined that with some facts, rhymed a little bit of it, gave it some flow, put it into some stanzas, and eventually just came together. The hard part was actually putting it all together in the end. I had no idea how hard it is to edit a podcast, but I learned how. I had to balance voices, audio clips, music, add overlays, make little microscopic clips and cuts, and whatever else here, there, and everywhere. Surprisingly, the song was easier to slice than the podcast. After considering and rejecting composing the music myself, I decided that it was in my best interest to pick a pre-made backing track instead. I figured it would turn out better, and I think I was right. I wrote the lyrics first, picked a track, plugged in my microphone, and got to it. I couldn't find a slower track, so I had to speak a lot faster than I expected to when I was writing the words. That was a challenge, but I did it by only doing a couple stanzas at a time so that my word recall was a little quicker in case I missed a word, and then I could just go back and put it all together later. My favorite part was dubbing in the extra stuff at the end. I just find it funny that I was listening to my own voice at the same time as speaking over myself. As far as my digital platform goes, once I decided to do a website, it was all pretty straightforward. I was thinking of using Facebook, but then I decided just for what I was doing, a website campaign was probably better. That brought me to Wix. I chose Wix over Weebly because I have some experience using Wix already, so that was helpful. But I also knew that it was a very easy to use software, unlike Weebly, which can become very time consuming, just mainly from getting stuck on the small stuff like formatting the size and addressing headers and whatever else. But one thing I thought about doing was a mock-up website, and I even played around with the Adobe software website simulator within Premiere Pro, but I decided to stick to what I know and use Wix just because it's a simple software, it looks good, and I already have some experience using it. I learned a lot of new skills and renewed a lot of old ones using Wix. I used to be really good at making websites because that was just something I did when I was 8 years old, I guess. And by choosing to create my own website, I also got creative control of virtually everything, except my domain name, because that costs $5 a month. No thank you. I was benefited by Wix in that I could also easily insert audio. Facebook doesn't make it so easy, and, you're going to get bored looking at a black screen. But Wix made it really easy for me to insert my audio in creative ways that showed off a nice background picture, like a little album picture in the corner. It was easy to use while still sounding good, and I could also add a description that can be viewed even while the audio is being played. So, this allowed you to follow along with the lyrics. You can't do that on Facebook. The only thing that I disliked about using Wix was that I was capped on my article. The system allowed as many words as I wanted. It allowed me to change everything to Times New Roman and whatever other fonts I wanted, but I wasn't allowed to increase the font size past what I have on the website. It is still a very readable size, don't get me wrong, but still, I would have liked a bigger font. So there you have it, folks, my reflection on my media campaign. I hope you have learned a bunch and enjoyed what you saw. Please feel free to share the story with friends and family if you want to inspire change in the healthcare system, because change in healthcare starts with you. Enjoy your day.